welcome to our morning edition of Arirang News. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has urged allies to support its efforts to squash the Iranian economy, saying Washington is preparing to impose what it calls the toughest sanctions in history on Tehran. The annual joint military exercises between South Korea and the United States are scheduled to end today after being cut in half. And Kim Yo-jong, the powerful sister of North Korea's leader, released a statement for the second day in a row last night, mocking South Korea over the scale-back drills. South Korea's producer prices dropped for the first time in 11 months, falling 0.4% from the previous month. But the Bank of Korea says the figure could face upward pressure in August, with oil prices rising again and tensions in the Middle East continuing. The Trump administration says it's preparing to hit Iran with an unprecedented wave of economic sanctions and is pressuring allies to join the move. On North Korea's recent missile tests, it said the U.S. remains committed to defending the U.S. homeland and added that it saw no immediate threat from the launches. Our Lee Soo-jin starts us off.
The U.S. is preparing to impose what it calls the toughest sanctions in history on Iran. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent told a broadcaster on Thursday that the measures are aimed at collapsing the regime while urging U.S. allies to decide whether to join Washington's pressure campaign. Bessent said the sanctions could also reduce the need for major U.S. military operations against the Islamic Republic. His remarks came after President Donald Trump pledged tougher economic measures against Iran.
Well, we have things that we could sanction. We have very draconian sanctions, and we'll see what happens. The blockade has been 100% successful. No boats have gotten into Iran, but they are getting in for other places. But we'll see.
Trump announced plans on Wednesday to further squeeze Iran's economy, declaring an economic D-Day in a Truth Social post. He also threatened major penalties against any country that continues doing business with Iran. The move comes as a war approaches the 6-month mark with little sign of a diplomatic or military victory for Washington. Iran's foreign ministry condemned the U.S. sanction as economic terrorism, saying they would hurt ordinary Iranians and amount to crimes against humanity. Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi meanwhile dismissed Trump's latest post as a diversion from America's own economic problems. Separately, the U.S. military said it remains committed to defending the U.S. homeland and its allies following North Korea's latest missile launches. U.S. Pacific Command said Thursday saw no immediate threat from the launches. The statement came after North Korea fired around 10 short-range ballistic missiles from Pyongyang toward the East Sea at around 5 p.m. Thursday. Lee Soo-jin, Arirang News.
The joint military exercises between South Korea and the United States are set to end today after being cut by half. And Kim Yo-jong, the powerful sister of North Korea's leader, released a series of mocking statements against Seoul, saying a single order from President Trump was enough to scale back the drills, while also calling President Lee Jae-myung's words and actions hypocritical. Our Eun-jin reports.
Kim Yo-jong, sister of leader Kim Jong-un, released a statement late Thursday night through the Korean Central News Agency with sneering remarks against Seoul. In response to the scaling down of the Ulji Freedom Shield joint military exercises, she mocked that a single order from U.S. President Trump left South Korea in a pitiful plight of no longer being able to play war games. Calling the alliance a master-servant relationship, Kim accused South Korea's President Lee Jae-myung of duplicitous words and deeds, referring to Lee's expression of respect and gratitude for Trump's decision to scale back the drills on social media, while discussing self-reliant national defense and securing independent military capabilities domestically. While North Korea maintains its hostile posture towards South Korea, analysts have commented that Kim Yo-jong's latest statement can be read to reaffirm North Korea's stance of leaving room for its relationship with the United States. The routine South Korea-U.S. joint exercise Ulji Freedom Shield will end early on Friday after only 5 days, scaled back from its originally scheduled 11-day run. The August exercises are usually split into 2 parts, defense and counterattack. But this time the exercise will conclude after carrying out only the first part. Eun-jin, Arirang News.
And for more on Trump's push to hold a meeting with North Korea's Kim Jong-un and the scaling back of joint drills, we're joined today by Professor Pan Gil-ju, assistant professor at the Korea National Diplomatic Academy. Professor Pan, thanks for coming on today.
Good to be with you.
So, U.S. President Donald Trump said earlier this week that North Korea has 57 very powerful nuclear weapons. So, from North Korea's perspective, could this comment acknowledging the regime's nuclear weapons lead it to seek a change in its international standing?
Well, regardless of real intentions behind Trump's comment, North Korea is most likely to take advantage of this moment for upgrading its international clout. To be more specific, Pyongyang has already been pursuing a faith-accomplished strategy of defining itself as a nuclear-armed state. But Trump's comment can encourage Pyongyang to shift its strategy to a more aggressive one, which is aiming at unofficially recognized nuclear power in the world. Under this shifting strategy, North Korea intends to upgrade its international standing from a poor and weak power to a nuclear-armed strong power. To top it up, as of right now, Pyongyang could take a closer look at how different America's approach to Iran is from its stance to North Korea. The former was based on a military solution, although it remains unsuccessful. In contrast to the latter is led by a diplomatic remedy, which is initiated by scaling down the USS exercise. What matters worse is that this huge difference could make Pyongyang perceive America's approach as a low-profile attitude, which could promote its miscalculation. As part of an effort to offset North Korea's miscalculation and misperception like this, South Korea and the United States need to emphasize the ironclad alliance through a diplomatic message and a show of military force in the field in the process of deploying diplomatic engagement with North Korea.
Right, but South Korea says North Korea is estimated to have up to 120 nuclear warheads, which is well above Trump's figure. So South Korea has traditionally avoided publicly disclosing detailed estimates of North Korea's nuclear stockpile, right? What does this more public acknowledgement suggest about Seoul's assessment of North Korea's nuclear capabilities?
Well, in general, experts estimate North Korea to be armed with around 50 to 120 nuclear warheads. But it is true that the ROK government avoids revealing the number of nuclear weapons because it is not good for maintaining a key policy, which is the denuclearization of North Korea. Meanwhile, South Korea's defense minister mentioned that the estimation of 80 to 120 nuclear warheads armed by North Korea is based on open source information, not an official assessment or acknowledgement. Moreover, he confirmed that the government is reluctant to define North Korea as a nuclear power or nuclear weapon state. In this sense, his comment seems to be made as a part of an effort to face the reality of North Korea's nuclear armament and come up with ways to counter its nuclear threats effectively. In the meantime, North Korea appears to try harder to become a recognized nuclear power in the world while taking advantage of this window of opportunity. With this in mind, South Korea should strongly maintain its policy on North Korea, which is the denuclearization of North Korea by diplomatically collaborating with both like-minded countries and non-like-minded countries. In this regard, I would say that both a diplomatic moment and a strategic moment are coming faster than we could imagine or expect.
I see. And the joint military exercises between South Korea and the United States and today, after being cut almost in half, the Korean government says this is not going to negatively impact wartime operational control and combined readiness. What's your take on this?
To be honest with you, this UFS exercise serves as an important momentum for the process of examining FOC full operational capability. In particular, South Korea and the United States agreed to determine or finalize the time for wartime operational control at the SCM this fall based upon the FOC examination. Meanwhile, since Part 2 was omitted in this UFS exercise, the two countries may need some time to examine whether FOC is complete or not. In this vein, this unexpected situation, like the reduction of the ROK-US combined exercise, could serve as a litmus test to show how the ROK-US alliance is strong and responsive. What matters most is that risk management in the alliance should be policy focus in an effort to maximize security interests. We need to be aware, again, that the cohesive alliance can prevent Pyongyang from making military provocations.
I see. And Trump is reportedly pushing to meet with North Korea's Kim Jong-un as early as November because that's when he's going to visit China for the APEC meeting. How likely is that, do you think, is going to happen?
Well, Trump had wanted to meet with Kim Jong-un on the sideline of 2025 Gyeongju APEC meeting, which ended in failure. So Trump seems to take the 2026 APEC meeting, which is being held in China, as the optimal and last chance to meet with Kim Jong-un. Although this is Trump's objective, Kim Jong-un might not be reluctant to meet with Trump if the condition is met. As Pyongyang mentioned in the 9th Party Congress, the key condition laid out by Pyongyang is that the denuclearization of North Korea should not be on the agenda. Meanwhile, the United States stresses meeting without conditions, which means the possibility that the denuclearization of North Korea might not be included in this meeting at the moment. China could also play a mediating role to make it happen because it helps enhance its strategic standing. In this sense, the DPRK and US summit is not entirely invisible. In particular, a low-tension diplomatic meeting is likely if that were to happen while focusing on easing tension on the Korean Peninsula and mitigating the hostile relations between Pyongyang and Washington. Although this level of meeting is not bad at all, Seoul and Washington should enhance strategic collaboration in order for Pyongyang not to take advantage of this venue or shifting its status as a recognized nuclear power in the world.
And could Trump's push to re-engage with Kim Jong-un be partly aimed at shifting attention from the Middle East to East Asia ahead of the midterm elections in November? What do you think is really driving his latest moves toward North Korea?
Trump's push to meet with Kim Jong-un again after the failure in the first Trump administration can be explained by three other calculus than the DPRK-US summit itself. First, part of deploying the exit strategy from the Iran war by drawing attention to North Korea from the failure in the Middle East. Second, promoting South Korea's detailed investments to the United States. And finally, pressing Seoul to support the United States substantially, simply beyond the diplomatic support to open the Strait of Hormuz. All of these intentions have something to do with domestic politics at the end of the day, which is the November midterm elections. To be more specific, Trump could think that it is right about time to create conditions to make the meeting happen in a situation where he needs diplomatic achievements to offset the failure in the Middle East. Moreover, since Xi Jinping is scheduled to visit Washington, D.C. in September, Trump could believe that his administration is better placed to press Xi to play a mediating role to make it happen.
I see. I guess we'll have to see how that goes. All right, Professor Pan, thank you so much for coming on today. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
And here in Seoul, China's top diplomat met with President Lee Jae-myung following talks with Foreign Minister Cho Hyun on bilateral ties and North Korea. Our correspondent Oh Si-young has the details of their meeting.
President Lee Jae-myung met with China's top diplomat Wang Yi on Thursday, calling for strategic communication as Seoul and Beijing seek ways to fully restore bilateral ties and as Yi calls for a peace regime with Pyongyang. The meeting took place in the morning, according to the Blue House's press release, with President Yi conveying his warm regards to Chinese leader Xi Jinping. Lauding progress made in the improvement of bilateral relations, he asked Wang to maintain close strategic communication with Foreign Minister Cho Hyun and National Security Advisor Wi Song-lak on Korea-China relations, the Korean Peninsula and other issues. This came after the Chinese official talks with Foreign Minister Cho Hyun on Wednesday. Over their 4-hour talks and official dinner, the two diplomats discussed affairs on the Korean Peninsula, with Cho requesting China's constructive role in securing Pyongyang's return to talks.
As much as President Lee Jae-myung presented a blueprint for peaceful coexistence on the Korean Peninsula in his recent Liberation Day address, the government will continue working toward the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula and the achievement of peace.
According to Seoul officials, Wang said China's policy remained consistent and pledged to keep playing a constructive role in promoting peace and stability.
We also hope that South Korea and North Korea can gradually move along the path towards peace and coexistence, and sincerely wish for the continued stability and development of the Korean Peninsula.
The Chinese minister, however, did not mention denuclearization. As Wang left his meeting, he told the media that renewed dialogue was a matter for the United States and North Korea to decide. He put the onus on Washington, saying it must change its long-standing hostile policy towards North Korea. This highlights lingering differences between Seoul and Beijing amid a deepening US-China rivalry over regional security and technology. Still, both sides have sought to rebuild cooperation, seeking the, quote, full restoration of bilateral ties.
This marks Wang's first official visit to Korea in almost 5 years and comes ahead of the two countries' 34th anniversary of diplomatic relations, which falls on August 24th.
The ministers agreed to use next year's 35th anniversary to elevate their ties, focusing on services and investment negotiations under the bilateral free trade agreement, supply chain stability, people-to-people and cultural exchanges, bringing pandas to Korea, and preserving Korean independence movement sites in China. According to a foreign ministry official on Thursday, the two sides also agreed to work towards another leaders' meeting when China hosts the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit in November. Seoul, Arirang News.
Korea's producer prices in July dropped 0.4% from the previous month as global oil prices move lower. Now that's according to the Bank of Korea on Friday, marking the first monthly decline in 11 months. Prices of industrial goods, including petroleum and chemical products, dropped 0.5%. However, prices of agricultural, livestock, and fisheries products rose 1.5% due to extreme summer heat. The Bank of Korea said producer prices could face upward pressure in August, with oil prices rising again and tensions in the Middle East continuing. U.S. chipmaker Micron Technology says it'll invest a total of $10 billion over the next 10 years to build a large-scale memory research center in Boise, Idaho, where its headquarters is located. The announcement on Thursday pushed company shares higher following a recent slowdown due to concerns about the durability of AI spending and competition from SK Hynix. Micron is the only U.S.-based company developing and manufacturing leading-edge memory, including DRAM and NAND products used across data centers, PCs, smartphones, and AI systems. The global hunt for critical minerals is ramping up as nations push to break free from dominant Chinese supply chains. And amid this push, a Korean tungsten mine is re-emerging as a key global partner. Our Kim Jong-un takes us there.
Blasting takes place in the dark as geologists and workers move in and out. This is Sangdong Mine in southern Gangwon-do province, one of the world's largest tungsten mines. Some 4.7 kilometers of tunnels lie beneath the site, where there are an estimated 58 million tons of reserves. Tungsten is invisible to the naked eye, but under UV light in the dark, it becomes visible in a distinctive blue. Sangdong had closed its doors amid competition from cheaper Chinese tungsten. But more than 3 decades later, the mine has reopened with full-scale commercial production. Annual output stands at around 2,300 tons, with processing capacity set to double in phases.
Tungsten deposits here have an average grade of about 0.43%. That's about 3 times the global average, which allows for stable production over the long term.
Tungsten is key to industries from defense and semiconductors to aerospace. Demand has surged for high-performance chips, while the US-Iran war has further strained global supplies. Chinese export controls are adding to the squeeze. The country produces around 80% of the world's tungsten, but supplies have fallen sharply since Beijing restricted exports of critical minerals last year, citing national security. Tungsten prices have soared since then. With critical minerals emerging as a new geopolitical weapon, Washington is racing to cut its reliance on China and diversify supplies. That is putting Sangdong in the spotlight as a key source of non-Chinese tungsten, with most of its output contracted for the U.S.
Building a value chain to develop and supply more tungsten is strategically important for Korea amid China's export controls. This would serve as an alternative supply source for our allies. Such cooperation could later act as a bargaining card for Korea to secure critical resources when needed.
For now, Sangdong handles the initial stages of production, including mining and concentrating. Operator Almonte Korea Tungsten plans additional facilities nearby as plans for downstream processing gain pace. Kim Jong-un, Arirang News, 영월.
Good morning, I'm Chi Ji-hyun, and this is The World Now. The United States Navy has sent a fresh aircraft carrier to the Middle East to relieve a ship whose crew has been at sea for months supporting the Iran war. U.S. Central Command said on Thursday that the USS George Washington arrived in the region on Wednesday. It takes over from the USS Abraham Lincoln, which had gone more than 250 days at sea without a break. Reports of life on the USS Abraham Lincoln described crew stress, poor mental health, and shortages of food and hygiene products. The USS George Washington came from Asia, leaving that region without an American carrier strike group. In Nigeria, an overloaded boat has capsized, killing at least 50 people. Most of the dead are children. The boat went down on Thursday in Nigeria's northwest Sokoto state. An official with the National Waterways Authority said about 40 children were among the dead. A state lawmaker said most of those on board were between 10 and 15 years old. He said 16 people were rescued. Residents said the boat was carrying farm owners and laborers hired to harvest rice. In Peru, a magnitude 6.7 earthquake struck the central Andes on Thursday. The United States Geological Authority said there were no initial reports of casualties or damage. The quake was deep at 99 kilometers below the surface. The head of Peru's Geophysical Institute said on Thursday that the depth prevented major damage, so the earthquake caused no impact. Peru sits on the Pacific Ring of Fire, where 85% of the world's quakes happen. Prince Harry and his wife Meghan are moving back to the UK this month, 6 years after they gave up royal duties and left for the United States. A person close to the couple said they will move from California to somewhere outside London. Their children, 7-year-old Archie and 5-year-old Lilibet, will go to school in Britain. They will not live in a royal residence and will remain non-working royals. King Charles only learned of the move on Sunday.
Keep your umbrella close. Most regions will have a wet Friday. Rain that started in the capital area in Gangwon-do province will continue through tomorrow morning. So Seoul and the surrounding regions could see 10 to 60 millimeters, while Gangwon-do and parts of Chungcheong-do province might see 5 to 40 millimeters through tomorrow. While Central Korea deals with rain, sudden showers will develop across Chungcheong-do and Southern Korea. Some areas could receive up to 50 millimeters with locally heavy rain possible. And this afternoon, Seoul will get up to 30 degrees Celsius. Meanwhile, much of the southern provinces are under heat wave alerts. Daegu will be soaring to 33 degrees Celsius. Gwangju will be as hot as yesterday at 35. Tomorrow afternoon, showers will develop across inland areas. And although Sunday marks Cheoseok, traditionally associated with the end of summer heat, temperatures will still be above norms.
That's all we have for this morning. Arirang News will be back at noon Korea time. Thanks for watching.